we were talking about this earlier. It is kind of a weird time for car dealerships, given current circumstances, what's going on with the world and with the U.S. How has current events really affected your dealerships, Josh? Like, what have you seen?
I've actually had a few of my dealerships have to shut their doors, and so I don't know currently if that is a temporary or a permanent thing, but it is an awful situation. Looking at it from the perspective of the businesses, obviously, me and Jacob both care about everyone that's being affected, but specifically when we're talking about the car industry, it's really tough when you're working with such a model, the dealership model, and how you're needing to sell millions of dollars of revenue throughout the month and to be shut down for even a couple weeks at this time, or even to 3 to 4 weeks.
Can be pretty devastating.
Yeah, you're talking about a detrimental situation to a business. But specifically with my dealerships, yeah, that's where I'm at. Is I'm trying to figure out what the game plan is going forward. What's that going to look like?
Yeah, I've seen some of that with some of my dealerships as well. Being that it's a very state by state, locality by locality situation and how people handle it. I've seen people who, like you said, have to shut their doors. They can't even have their sales floors open. The service drives are essential businesses, so they can keep that open, but people are selling cars online. And then you have other dealerships that are, it's like business as usual. It's just a little bit of a slower month. They're not that heavily affected. They're still spending money in marketing. So I've seen a pretty broad spectrum. So it really just depends on what OEM it is and where they're at. So,
Right. 100%.
But with that being what's going on, most OEMs that we've seen are still offering like 0% APR for 84 months and even deferred payments up to 6 months for some people. I think like Volkswagen and maybe Ford and Chevy are doing that, maybe some others too. But a lot of OEMs are doing the 0 for 84 and deferred payments for at least 3 months is the least that I've seen.
Right. I mean,
With that, do you
go
think
ahead.
that'll help stimulate business for these car dealerships, or you think people will still be a little bit scared to kind of go in right now? What's your opinion on that?
Well, I mean, it's kind of a weird situation because these car dealers, or not dealers, but the OEMs themselves are having to get really aggressive to really see if they can get people off their couches, because whether or not that's them shopping online, because those are options right now, or going into the dealership if the county allows for it or the state. But I'm kind of weird on it. I mean, it's like people are trying to save their money, and so it's an awful situation in the car industry. But I think at least they're trying to do something. I know Hyundai is my favorite right now. Might have to fact check me on this, but they were doing something like 0% for 84, deferring their payments for 90 days. And if you were to have gotten fired during that time from your job, they would cover your next 6 monthly payments. And so it's pretty aggressive for what it is, but at the same time, they're showing that they care. But also, some people might be pushed away from the fact that you're financing your car for 8 years or 7 years.
Yeah, that is quite a long time. I know, years ago, 60 months was a really long time, but that's pretty standard. And now 72 is like, that's kind of long. And then you get to 84. That's a long while to finance any car, really.
Yeah, you're almost pushing like a mortgage situation on your house now on your car.
Yeah, you have to get renter's insurance for your vehicle now instead of car insurance.
Yeah.
Jeez. But yeah, so besides that, like OEMs are doing stuff to help people still buy cars. If you were in the market beforehand, and we've kind of referenced articles like that on our social media pages. So if you go to those, you can find more details about it and see what the exact offers that these people are offering. With that being said, if somebody decides to go into a dealership to buy a new vehicle with this circumstance, what are some car buying tips you would give them, Josh? You and I have both bought vehicles within the last year or so. So what's something that you would give to somebody else advice-wise?
Personally, if I was to give somebody some advice, I would tell them that I'm still going to wait till the end of the month. Like specifically right now, I would go tomorrow. If you were in the market to buy a car, tomorrow being for us right now as we're recording is the 30th of March, and there happens to be 31 days. You're looking at a situation where cars are not moving as well as they normally are, and OEMs are very pressured on these dealers. So if you were to come in near the end of the month, more likely than not, you're going to get a deal that hurts the dealership more than helps them. And the only thing that is helping them is moving units. So getting the best off of your deal at the dealership. If you're willing to negotiate, is a good time at the end of this month specifically. It's always been the end of the month, but also if you go to the dealership and you don't see the salesman walking around outside looking for leads, I don't recommend going to that dealership. I know that's weird. I'm a more of a price and a deal shopper rather than I'm loyal to a dealership. And so if those salesmen aren't outside, they're not desperate, they're not trying to make moves, and so you're not going to get the best off of the price. So even if you got 0%, your starting price isn't as low as it could have been at another dealership.
Yeah, and also being the end of the month, most people don't know this about dealerships is they have to sell a certain amount of cars. Like they have a goal from the OEM and it gives them a bonus check in terms of that they can use for marketing or financing other vehicles on the sales floor. So trying to hit those numbers is a big deal to them. So if you go in towards the end of the month and they're starting to near that number, then they're going to be more willing to negotiate with you because that bonus check means more to them than trying to make the most amount of profit on one sale. So
Right.
that's also something to consider when going in towards the end of the month. Because at the beginning, like they have 30 days left to hit those numbers if you go in at the beginning. So they have plenty of time to make up that ground.
Right.
So then what are some other things that you would ask for? Let's say you're in the finance, you're going through with the deal. What are some of the things that you recommend buyers should get? Because the finance manager is going to offer and try to sell people a lot of stuff. What is essential and what is important for every customer to consider getting at least?
The one thing that I always consider is gap insurance. That is huge. Obviously, if you don't know what gap insurance is, we can talk about it real quickly. So like if you were to finance a car for $21,000, like that's what you're paying for 6 years. If you were to get in an accident a year from then and you still owed 18 and your car is only worth 16, the gap insurance would then cover the rest of the car note that you didn't pay for and then also give you a check for what you got. So like you wouldn't have to worry about continuing to pay on the loan of what's left. So that's what's nice. It adds about, I'd honestly say roughly between $10 to $12 extra each month on your finance payment. So it's huge to get that on there. If you can afford it, obviously that's always a budgeting thing, depending on how long you're financing your car from. I personally had at one time gotten my rims covered and my tires, and I actually used it. I don't highly recommend it because it adds another $700-800 on the total financing of your loan. So you're not necessarily going to use it all the time. The one time you do use it, you're going to be thankful you did. But outside of that, I think just making sure that you're getting as low of a finance rate as you can. If you're not able to get or capable to get 0%, I think gap insurance is what I would recommend.
Yeah, I would also agree with those two things. If you're somebody who likes to drive your car up on top of curbs, then definitely get the wheel coverage. But
Yeah.
if not, if you're pretty careful and you don't curb rash up your rims, then maybe not. It just depends on what type of driver you are.
Right.
But there's lots of other things that the finance director is going to try to sell you. But definitely gap insurance and wheel coverage is good stuff to look at. There's going to be plenty of other stuff they offer you, though, which we can probably go more into detail about that at a later podcast. But like that's probably one of the top two things that we usually look at when we buy a car.
Right.
We appreciate y'all tuning in and listening, and like all of our social media pages, follow them. We're going to post updates on there when we're recording, when videos are coming out. Like we said earlier, we post articles on there, some useful stuff that everybody can probably take something away from. If you have some stuff you want us to cover, then shoot us an email. We have a GCG podcast email. It'll be in the description below. So if you have some stuff you want us to talk about, like, hey, I need some more information on this, or I want to learn more about this, then just let us know and we'll add it into the podcast.
Or even leave it in the comments section. We'll try and get to it and make sure we're keeping you guys' thoughts and interests first in mind.